Okay, Justin, you'll be live in 30 seconds.
Thank you, Chip. Would you be able to grab a piece of paper off the printer for me? Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. I think, Chip, did you want to make announcements about how this link with YouTube works, or how did you want to handle that?
Sure. As far as the YouTube goes, once you get on, looks like everybody's in there now. You need to get your videos up. Hold on just a second. Okay, there we go. So once you get in there, as long as your video's on, people watching can see you. If your video is not on, then they will hear you, but nothing else will show up. We're doing this, streaming this through YouTube. And so it looks like everybody's got their video up. So that's good. So now that makes it visible to those who are watching on YouTube. So thank you for doing that.
All right. Thank you, Chip. And just so you're all aware, the streaming is a requirement because we are holding these virtually. It's not that we will stream these all the time once we are able to meet in person, but as long as we're conducting the meeting in a virtual setting, we do stream those just for transparency and so the public can see the business in which we're engaging. So I just want to give you all a heads up on that one. So will be on YouTube. It's not posted to Facebook. But I did want to welcome you all to our initial meeting. I wanted to thank you, obviously, for volunteering to serve in this capacity. This is the initial board for the Public Art Advisory Board to implement the new policy that was adopted by City Council last year. So it's very important. Obviously, the first board of any advisory group has a lot of work generally to do as they scope out work, how that will look, begin to shape funding mechanisms, address where art needs to be, where art could be, and engages the public in that work. So I appreciate your willingness to jump on board. I know we've got our work cut out, but I think we've got a great group. So I think we can manage really well and put the city in a great spot to move forward with public art. So I had sent out a draft agenda for you to review. Typically, those will come from the chair of this board, which we'll talk about a little bit later. We'll have to talk about officers. But I thought it might be great before we really get into the agenda. Let's see, I think we have Violet joining. Yeah, let's let her get in. Okay. Violet, I wanted to confirm you're able to hear us.
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Absolutely.
There we go.
Good deal. We're very early. I was just getting started and we were just about to introduce ourselves. So I will start. I'm Justin Merritt. I know several on this call, but I don't know everyone. So I look forward to getting to know those of you I don't know. I'll serve as the staff liaison for this board. So my role will be doing research or advising you from the city's perspective, how we may engage through general statutes, city policy, other things like that. So that's kind of my role. Your role is really the recommending board. Mine is to just provide information to you as needed and report back and supply you with any answers that you may request of me. So that's kind of my role. I'm going to go around in the order in which you appear on my screen. So Casey Quinn, can I hand it off to you?
Yeah, my name's Casey Quinn. I teach art in the county. I teach at Crest High School and also teach adjunct classes at CCC. I try to participate in art making around the county as well. Recently worked on a mural outside of the Arts Council. So really excited to see that expand and grow in the city.
Very good. Thank you, Casey. David Royster.
Hey guys, I'm David Royster. I work with Capital Fund's commercial real estate. Among other things, I'm a property manager. I'm involved with Uptown Shelby Association, and pretty excited about being a part of any kind of artistic upgrades to the city, and just happy to be here.
All right. Thank you, David. Patrick McMurray.
Hey everyone, I'm Patrick McMurray. I'm an architect at Holland and Hamrick Architects here in town, and just happy to be on the board and serve, and hopefully get some more art installation and murals and everything going around uptown. So looking forward to it.
Thank you, Patrick. Kayla DeBruno. Kayla, we don't have any sound, or at least I don't.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, that's a little better.
Okay. Sorry. I'm a senior at Shelby High, and I've been in art ever since I was little. I have a little art board in my room, and I've had people buy art from me, and I just thought this was a good opportunity.
Okay. Thank you, Kayla. So welcome aboard, and certainly great to have some youth participation in our advisory board. So we welcome you aboard. Beverly Putnam.
Hey, I'm a retired art educator, art administrator, school administrator. I've had a long career in the arts and education, and most recently I have become a member of Buffalo Creek Gallery. So I'm one of the members of the co-op there. So I'm quite interested in what's going on in downtown with the arts. So happy to be here.
All right. Thank you, Beverly. Sheri Miller.
I'm Shara. I am the director of the Cleveland County Arts Council. So everything art is important to me in our county, and especially here in Shelby, since we sit right here on the court square. So glad to be a part.
Thank you, Shara. Welcome. Glad to have you. And Violet Dukes is our city council liaison. So Violet.
Hi, everybody. Yes, I work at the Arts Council. I'm also on City Council, and I'm your liaison. So it's nice to see everybody here. Looking forward to what we can all do.
Thank you, Violet. So now that we all know each other well, right? I'm sure we will get to expand on our talents and skills and all those things as we venture through some of these new policies and procedures and start to work through that a little more. But thanks for introducing yourselves. If it's okay with everyone, I have a presentation prepared, and I will tell you that about 5 minutes before we went live here, 2 of my 3 monitors shut down. They have not come back up. So I'm running with 1 monitor, which feels somewhat strange right now. So I'm gonna do the best I can with this, if it's okay. Now this, the presentation is one that we have prepared that generally runs through general board organization as relates to North Carolina general statutes. So some of you may be very familiar with this. Some of you may not. I don't know. And we, as we were working through this, didn't know what everyone's background was as far as working with things such as public records or transparency, conflicts of interest, the role of an advisory board as relates to city council. So if some of this seems remedial, that's okay. We just wanted to take it from the ground level approach and then build from there. So, but feel free absolutely to stop me as I go through this, ask questions. It's meant to be informal and informative. And once we get to the end, you can certainly ask questions then as well. But if they pop up along the way, don't hesitate to interrupt. So I'm going to try and share my screen, and then we'll see if my computer will let me navigate the process. Okay, can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay, that's a good start. All right. So as you can see, this is kind of going to go through the guidelines, codes of conduct, and then just some other information that really relates to, like I said, boards generally throughout the city. So first and foremost, thank you for volunteering your service, your time, and your expertise to participate. This was a little quote. I won't read it for you, but I think it speaks to the engagement. Is volunteering is really giving back to your community of your time, and you can do that every day. And it does matter. It does make a difference when we have the involvement of those folks that we serve, advising us on what we should do. So again, I appreciate all of you taking time to be here, and we'll move to the next. So just an overview of the advisory board system here. General membership, responsibilities and expectations, your roles, and then we'll talk about conflicts of interest and guidelines, ethically related, and then just some procedures that some of you may also be familiar with as relate to attendance, quorum, Robert's Rules of Order, open meetings law, and then things even as simple as resignation from the board. So understanding advisory boards and their roles. So first and foremost, advisory boards do make recommendations to city council. So I think I had emailed out earlier the public art policy that was adopted by city council earlier in calendar year 21. I think it was around April or May. So that is essentially the guidelines, the guide rails within which this board operates. And within that, the Arts Advisory Board makes recommendations to City Council. And you can see kind of my role is moving in between the Advisory Board to the City Manager. And then the Advisory Board will communicate some with the City Manager with questions, things like that. But ultimately, that decision goes from the Advisory Board to City Council for consideration. So the purpose is to provide City Council with information and perspective to inform their decisions. Because this board is larger, it serves different areas of the community with different backgrounds. Kind of the eyes and ears. The more information we can get and inform council, the better decisions we think we can make. So engage residents on the issues that affect them. You all have your circles, your groups of friends, those type of things that you can gather input in. And then obviously with this board's own public engagement activities. And then obviously expand the city's capacity for what it can do. The ideas that you come up with, the funding mechanisms, those type of things can really allow projects to move along much quicker than they otherwise would have if we didn't have your expertise and knowledge to guide us along in those recommendations. Okay. So terms, and again, this is just going to be some general information here. 3-year terms for each of you and anyone following you. For this particular board, the limits are 2 consecutive terms followed by 1 year of service off the board, and then you could reapply for reappointment to this board. You can see there are some boards that this would not apply to. Generally, those governed by statute. This board is not governed specifically by general statute as far as its existence. its existence is at the pleasure of City Council. So just general expectations. I'm sure you're all aware of this and will have no trouble meeting these standards, but be prepared, show up, be fair and objective, participate fully, and then follow through. So those are pretty standard guidelines that we really expect of all of our advisory board members. And so I don't think we'll have trouble there. So effective members understand the following things. Serving the public is our first priority. I think that starts all the way from City Council through staff, advisory boards. That is why we're here. Certainly me. That is and staff. That is what we do. Without the public, we wouldn't be here. So that's our job. Almost all of our boards do serve only in an advisory capacity. There are a couple that do have the final say. And again, those are the ones that are set out by the state through the general statutes. Authority is granted to the board, not the individuals within it. So all that means is the board decisions. So those voted decisions are those things that are recommended or funneled up to the board, not individual members' opinions or thoughts, but what that board ultimately agrees to at the end of the day is how that works. So teamwork and compromise, obviously we know that, working together to overcome challenges, work through those things that come up, because art, as all of you know, is certainly subjective, and there can be strong opinions about art one way or the other, and maybe even the medium of art. So there are a lot of things we have to work through. So teamwork and compromise are going to be two tools that we need to keep in our toolbox. So we challenge problems and not people. And that goes back to, different thoughts about different things, how we manage those. So again, I don't think we'll have any trouble there. So conduct expectations, pretty standard here. Obviously cell phones, we try to keep those away or muted during meetings. I don't think I have to go through all of these, but they're there and to be considered. So fostering supportive environments, treating everyone with respect and dignity. We want to be committed to providing that safe environment where everyone can feel as though they can fully engage and provide their comments and share their perspectives without being, certainly I think harassed or any type of pushback, because what you really want, especially I think in public art, is for folks to offer their opinion and their expertise without being judged by that. Obviously, I think we're in a good place with that. Just some thoughts here on board meetings when it comes time to attend those. So be prepared. We'll generally send out the agenda. I would welcome any feedback you have on those as they come out. Those will generally be set by the chair, although staff may be drafting the agenda and some of the components. But read through those. Be prepared to offer your opinions, your advice. Consider others. We will have committees as needed, so we may ask that you serve on those from time to time. Talk to your friends, family, get feedback. There may be times to volunteer, and obviously, one thing to be aware of as we seek new members is to recruit those folks that you think would be good in this capacity. As you start to rotate off, think about who may fill those roles. It's always great to have a good pipeline of competent board members to follow and keep the vision carrying forward. So this is a little bit about the roles as you begin to think about who may be a chair, a vice chair, a secretary of this board. Those are things we'll need to talk about, not necessarily decide today, but we will need to think about those. So the chair would develop the meeting agenda with the staff liaison, obviously facilitate the meeting, and we follow Robert's Rules of Order, which we'll talk about a bit later. Make sure city and council interests are met. Sign documents, represent the board, maybe at events, call special meetings if needed, and communicate with the city clerk about any issues that may arise within the board as far as attendance or those type things. So these are just general things that the chair would be responsible for as you begin to think about what you may be interested in as a role. Vice chair, obviously, in the absence of the chair, would conduct those same duties. We've talked about my role just a little bit. It's a staff liaison, so I would develop the agenda with the chair. Generally, that's just creating that document, making sure it gets out. Coordinate staff. Sometimes we may want to talk about maintenance. So we may bring in someone from Public Works. We may want to talk about how a particular project may coordinate with another city project. So we may have planning and zoning staff. We may have someone from public utilities, and we may have someone from Parks and Recreation. So I would be responsible for coordinating those staff and making sure they're available to make any reports to you as you may require. So write and post minutes. Alternatively, this could be someone selected as a board secretary. That would be up to your board to decide. And then advise the board on legal compliance. So we have a city attorney, Andrea Leslie Fight. I would coordinate that with her, and I could either report back after discussing with her, or if need be, we could ask her to attend a meeting and explain whatever the issue may be to us. It's a little bit about my role. So I'm excited about that. The council liaison, Violet Arth. So she certainly is here to advise the board on what council's goals are, convey ideas, concerns that have come from the board. Not a voting member, but may attend regular or special meetings, but attendance is not required. Violet, is there anything else you'd like to say? I know you serve as council liaison on a couple other boards. Is there anything you would like to comment about with your experience there?
Not really. As things come up, I'll, mention things, but for now, I think that's a pretty good description. I don't vote, but I may have thoughts, ideas, or, things that I've heard from other council members that I can share with everybody. So, yeah.
All right. Thank you, Val.
Sure.
Okay. Conflicts of interest and ethics guidelines. I think you're all probably familiar with what a conflict of interest is. This is just as is defined in state law for public entities. So when a member has a separate private or monetary interest in any issue or transaction under consideration. So the more important thing to do is to what would you do if it occurs, or if you have identified a conflict of interest. So you wouldn't want to discuss that, advocate for or against, or vote on that matter. And you should ask the board to be recused from voting on that specific issue if that should arise. So we'll jump into procedures here as far as how meetings should run generally. So attendance is more than 50% of the regular meetings within a calendar year. Currently, our policy says that we will meet every other month, so 6 times per year, and not missing more than 3 consecutive regular meetings, which in our case would be 50% of the meetings in a year. So we will report that to the chair, by the chair to the city clerk. And if a member needs to be late, we just, it just is proper procedure just to report that so everyone knows that, yes, I will be there, but I may be 15 or 20 or whatever minutes late. Quorum is at least 50% of the voting members, excluding any vacant seats. You must be physically present to be counted, and all actions by the board require a quorum. So if we do not have a quorum, we would not be able to take action on an item. So Robert's Rules of Order is really a simple idea of taking one topic at a time and one speaker at a time. Generally keeps a focus. It keeps the meeting moving along at an orderly orderly pace. So it's not too complicated. The order of business is here. We will provide this to the chair, so they will have this and at their disposal if they need to reference this during a meeting. But generally, it's all of the things you normally would think: a call to order, roll call, approval of the minutes, officer reports, committee reports, any special orders, then unfinished business, new business, announcements, and adjournment. So it's pretty straightforward, what you would think in any meeting. This is simply a graphic display of how a meeting would run, especially as relates to handling or dispensing with business, as far as making a motion. What happens if it does not receive a second? What happens if it does? And goes through that voting process after some debate. So pretty simple. And again, we'll provide this information to the chair and other board members as well, just so everyone knows exactly what to expect. So the minutes, and currently this would fall to me unless the board selects a secretary that would then be responsible for taking the minutes. And certainly if we could do that either way, and I can work with the secretary. If we're meeting via Zoom, we can record the meetings. Otherwise, we can discuss how we want to take those minutes in person. The list of all motions, verbatim, and votes. Link all documents presented and discussed. So we'll do that here through the website. They are approved at the meeting, following that meeting, and they are public records and information. So they're subject to public records law, and they will be published regularly on our webpage. So that's something that will stay up to date. So generally what would happen if we received a public request, we would just point them to that space on the website, and they should be able to get what they need from there. So this goes a little into more detail about the open meetings law. I probably won't read all of this, but just hit some highlights. So a public body, we are operating as a public body in this Public Art Advisory Board. So it's an appointed group which has at least 2 members. We won't have to worry about quasi-judicial, but we are serving in an advisory function. So that is the category under which we fall. So an official meeting is when a majority of the public body's members meet in person or electronically to conduct a hearing or make a recommendation. So if you're at a Arts Council gathering together, that doesn't violate any open meetings law. But when you meet to conduct a hearing or make recommendations, that is when you want to make sure we've publicly noticed and we are following those open meetings laws. So generally, what are they for? Promote transparency, require that they are open to the public. So our meetings when we meet in person will be open to the public. That is the reason we have this on YouTube today, is because we're not in person, and that is how we make the public aware. And then we talk about record keeping and how it is important to document what goes on in our meetings. So I'm not going to go through this one either. These are general statutes that govern what we do as far as public records law, time retention, official communications, emails and text messages sent are likely public record if they deal with the business of the government. So just remember that. I think pretty much everyone is aware of everything else here. The one thing the city attorney did ask me to cover, and it's just making you aware to use personal information or to use confidential information for personal gain. That does, as far as the statutory compliance, is a Class 1 misdemeanor. So we just like to make people aware of that. So we cover from a liability standpoint. Again, thank you. Serving on the board, I think this will be a rewarding experience. This board, again, I said it's the initial board. So we've seen some public art take place in Shelby already. I think we have heard from citizens, we've heard from council that there's a desire to increase that presence. Certainly, I think we have some opportunities moving forward with projects to incorporate art, whatever it may look like, whether it's a mural or whatever form it may take. I think that's what this board will have the pleasure of determining, and I think it's going to be a great adventure for us to move down. So again, appreciate your volunteerism there. So this is just some information for the city clerk as far as how to get in touch with her. We have on our website, this board and commission will be there, the telephone number and email address. And I can email this presentation out to you so you have all this going forward. I don't expect you to write it all down. I think that is the end of the presentation. Did anyone have any questions before I stop the share or want me to go back to any slides? Or is it pretty straightforward? Okay. Don't hear any questions, I will stop the share. Okay, and everyone is back. Sure you're all thrilled by that presentation, but we do want to go through that. And it's not something, board orientation is not something we have done a lot of in the past, but we felt like it may be good just to at least get that baseline of understanding of how we operate under the rules, at least from a governmental standpoint. So we've covered that. Now we can move into really however you want to move forward through the agenda. I made some notes as far as discussion about the election of officers. Considering a regular meeting schedule. So does this time work for everyone? Or, do we need to look at our calendars a little bit more diligently about a regular meeting schedule again every other month, but what day and what time? So I'm open to folks' questions about the slide, or if you want to hop into the discussion about officers, or if you want to take it in a different direction. I'm happy to advise and give information as needed. Does anyone have any thoughts about a chair or interested in being the chair of this board? Hey, quiet group today. Okay, well, I don't think that we need to decide that today. What I would recommend is by our next meeting, we really need to think about the chair, a vice chair, and a secretary. Now, if that secretary would prefer that I take the minutes and then present them to the secretary for review, that's something we can certainly work out. But just be thinking about that. We will need to have those positions filled, I would think, by the end of that first meeting, so that we can develop the agenda and that we can work through business. It would be a bit of a challenge if we didn't do that. So, but I don't expect you to commit today, but just be thinking about that. And if you have questions about roles, responsibilities, what type of time commitment you think it may be, feel free to give me a call. I think I've emailed all of you. So my information, you have my email address, and obviously my office number is in the signature line within that email. And you'll have it again when I send out this PowerPoint. So don't hesitate to reach out and talk to me about that if you're interested or just want to have more details about what that may involve. But those are important roles that we will need to fill. Does anyone have any thoughts about regular meeting schedule, days that work great, days that just absolutely do not work? Or would it be better for me to send out another doodle poll so you could fill those in? Those seem to work pretty well. I think everyone responded last time. And then we can choose. I know it's, we've got 30 days in in a month, and we've got, Monday through Fridays that we can hold those. And they don't have to be within the work hour. They can be afternoon, morning, whatever fits this board's preference. But I think it'll be important because that will be our next meeting, would be that. So we just need to nail that down. Does anybody have any thoughts currently, or would you prefer I just send out a poll and let it kind of rise to the top that way?
That would be a date in December, correct?
Or
November.
Well, we could certainly meet in November.
Okay.
Because it's September now, this, I don't know if I'd call this an official meeting or just an organizational meeting. But generally Decembers are difficult.
Yeah.
So you may want to start them in November, although I know we have Thanksgiving towards the end there. But December is a difficult month generally to get folks together because there's so much going on. So we may want to try and avoid Decembers if we could. But that's certainly up to the board to decide. So
I would just.
Oh, I think you're muted.
Well, I thought I think I went back and forth. Sorry. I would suggest, because of the holidays coming up, that we would do it before Thanksgiving. And that way we get into a regular, and then we avoid December altogether, but there's not a whole lot of time left.
I was going to suggest November 8th. Then we don't fall on a council meeting.
Right. And I apologize. I'm going to pull up my calendar, which means I won't be able to see you for just a bit. All right. Okay, so that is a Monday. Okay. Yep. Certainly an option. Any other thoughts?
November the 8th works great for me too. And I like this time, but I'm open to anything as long as it's, on the calendar in advance.
Yeah, I agree.
Does anyone, November 8th works unless anyone has, a significant conflict with that. And then we can just space them every other month going forward on that Monday of each month.
I'm good.
So you're saying the second Monday of each month?
Yeah, I think that's what it would fall on, is the second Monday of every other month. So,
Okay. Right, that's what I meant, every other month.
I'm good.
okay. Well, if we're good with that, then I will, I'll just go ahead and put that on everyone's calendar. If you're okay with it, I don't want to send a bunch of clutter. I can set that up as a recurring date every other month. That way you have those, and I can just set them out a year at a time if that works for everyone. So we'll get those, that way they'll already be there. And then we'll just send out the agenda ahead of each meeting. So that's fine. I will go ahead and get that out this week for November the 8th at 4. Does 4 work for everyone again?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Perfect. So we have our first decision made. Okay. Does anyone have anything else they want to bring up, or, just general time here to discuss or talk about things as you see fit?
Hey, Justin, you briefly hit on it, but is there any more context, or I guess what's the history of why the board was created, or the advisory council was created, and were there other cities that you saw or other people saw that led to this decision? And will there ever be like any type of budget that we'll get to? Will we be working within a budget or like I guess an annual, this is going to be allotted for public work that year or something like that? Any background information on that?
Yeah, so that's a great question, Patrick. So we had heard, I think, from City Council and through just the public, Uptown Shelby Association, Keep Shelby Beautiful, that public art was desired more prolifically throughout the city. And I think as city staff, we did look to other towns and to see how they did that, how they incorporated art. The town of Clayton, they have a pretty robust rotating art. They're generally sculptures that they rotate throughout their city. So we looked at their model. Hickory has a pretty robust program. We looked at their model. And then there were several outside of North Carolina that we looked at. Our local government fellow last year really did a great job researching what others do, how they funded it, and how they sustain public art within their cities. So the main thing, we wanted public engagement. We understand that art is, it has to be a part of the public domain. So therefore it has to be a part of and wanted by those around where it's placed, right? So you want to have that buy-in from folks. If you're going to put public art in their community or around a business or whatever it may be, you want to have their thoughts and ideas involved. And it seemed like this was a great way to be able to get that input from the public, whereas they may not always come to a city council meeting and talk about that. But if they can engage directly with a citizen advisory board, sometimes they're more comfortable in that setting. So that's kind of the impetus behind that. The funding mechanism is something that this board will actually get to recommend or make a recommendation to council. So within the policy, there are examples of what other cities have used. Some request through their work plan. So that's a part of what this board will develop is an annual work plan and recommend a requested budget from city council to be included in, maybe it's just the administrative budget, and that I would administer that funding for you. So that's one mechanism. And when we could use multiple mechanisms, but that is one. Another option would be, and I think Hickory uses this option, a 1% of capital projects. So if we have a project going on that is X dollars, 1% of that would be withheld for public art, either at that location or it could be reserved for, at a different location if it doesn't fit there. So let's say we're doing a project at our wastewater plant, which is hidden and out of view. But you take 1% of that budget that can go to public art. You may not want it there because it may never be seen, but at least you have that funding mechanism there to help fund public art that may go, uptown or wherever it may be. So that's another funding mechanism. And yet that honestly can generate a pretty significant amount of dollars when you talk about, some of the projects that we've done recently that are multi-million-dollar projects. So that 1% can really give the program a kickstart if that's available. Obviously, that wouldn't apply if a project is completely grant funded, because grants are specifically tied to the project for which they're awarded. So you couldn't use that set aside in that scenario. But generally, when a project is city funded, that would apply, or loan funded, that would apply. So that's an option. And then there are a couple other options within the policy, but I think those are primarily the ones that seem to be the most beneficial in this case. Keep Shelby Beautiful has a budget within the planning and zoning department. So that's just an administrative allocation every year. Yeah, that's kind of what we presented in there, but there are certainly other methods too that we could flesh out if needed. So thanks. You're welcome. Any other questions? That was a good one.
I just kind of have a question about the process as far as picking public art goes. Do we, as advisors, are we looking at public art like proposals that have been submitted to the city council, and we're discussing whether those would be valuable? Are we looking for artists that we think would be good for the city? Are people submitting proposals directly to us? How does that part of the board work?
So I think the answer to that is both. My guess is that as the program starts, it will become the latter more often, but someone could submit a proposal to a city council person, and the city council could then refer that proposal to this board for further consideration as relates to the policy. What I think will happen as this board gets more mature and we're able to work through a program, set a project agenda for a calendar year, and funding is available, you may decide, hey, we think this space within Shelby would be great for public art. And then you maybe form that citizen group or an advisory committee, or this board meets, engages with the public in that area and comes up with, okay, this is kind of what we're thinking based on the public input. Is it a sculpture, a mural, maybe some interactive art, who knows what it may turn out to be. And then at that point, I think this board would send out that request for proposals to artists to solicit, what they think would look great there, or their interpretation of the scope of the project would be. And then at that point, this board would evaluate those and make that recommendation to city council. And then city council would have the authority to either award that contract or not, to put that piece of art in place. So I think it could be both. My hope is that, as we move along and get some time under our belts, that this board will be putting out its own RFQs as it evaluates spaces and determines that there will be good space for public art to exist. Two good questions. Any more? And did everyone receive the policy? I wanted to make sure that came through. I know it's a big document. And if anyone would like one of those printed, we can certainly do that too, and I can get it to you. So just let me know how you prefer to receive that. Thought before I printed a bunch of them up, I would ask that question though.
And that on the title page is the City of Shelby Public Art Plan. Is that what
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I don't have any other items on the agenda to go through at this point, unless you have other questions. I'll just say, please consider serving in one of the roles, the chair, vice chair, secretary. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me if you have any questions about that or anything else. Quite honestly, if you come across something in the policy that you have a question about or don't understand or whatever, just email, office phone, whatever works best for you will work best for me. So I look forward to working with you going forward. I hope we can meet in person. I much prefer meeting in person when we can. Although I understand right now that's a challenge, and we're probably all used to Zoom, but it works. But that's about all I can say. It's not the best method, I don't think. So hopefully we'll be able to get together soon, and maybe by our next meeting, we'll see. But again, I do appreciate it. I know you're all busy people, and you've got tons of things you could be doing right now, but the fact that you're sitting here investing in the city of Shelby and its art future, I think is important, and it says a lot about the people's involvement in our community. So thank you again. Violet, anything you'd like to say to wrap up?
No, just thank you everybody for being here. Really appreciate it. I think we can do good things, and the council is interested in more public art, not just in Uptown Shelby, which I don't know that we really covered, but in the city limits. And can't wait to see what you guys come up with.
All right. Thank you, Violet. So my takeaways, I will send out the calendar invitation for our November 8th at 4 p.m. meeting. I will send out the PowerPoint presentation today, and probably a short presentation about the Public Art Advisory Board that was made to City Council. So that just gives you kind of a highlight overview of the policy. It's a quicker read. And then again, please reach out if you have questions. I look forward to hearing from you. And then I will see you all again on the 4th, if not before, individually. So thank you. And I guess we don't have an official voting here, but we will just stand adjourned.
Thank you, Justin.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Have
Thank
a
you,
good evening.
Justin.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
See ya.